Adele. Oh, you talk about someone close to my heart. Adele. That's a real woman right there, ladies and gentlemen. I have loved Adele from the second I saw her. And, when she first burst on the scene, I just thought, man, it'd be so damn nice to share a open roast beef sandwich with her, or, go sew up a damn Pizza Hut buffet, or just get involved with a plate of chicken parmesan, It's something like that. Just go hold up a Dairy Queen for everything they're worth. I used to love the idea of that. And then Adele, and her music was sweet too. Then Adele got skinny AF. Real skinny. And, did it take away from a little bit of the mystique? Maybe a little bit. It's hard for me to say, I wouldn't mind sharing a couple extra long Coney dogs from Sonic with Adele, and she weighs 78 pounds. But I still love Adele. And she's still a beautiful lady. Well, Adele released a photo on Instagram or Twitter or something, and it was thanking the healthcare people. I mean, like they need any more thanks. I mean, now Adele, but what about me? What about the podcasters? What about the content creators? But so Adele posts this picture, and she's looking, really thin. If you haven't seen the picture, go check it out. And it doesn't even look like Adele. If you were to show me this picture and be like, who is that? I would not have been like, oh, that's Adele. She looks completely transformed. And all the media outlets are like, oh, Adele looks so good. Adele, look at it, the glow up. Look at Adele, look at this, look at this. And people were pissed because the idea is, why does someone getting skinnier mean they're glowing up? Why do you say, oh, you look so great, now that you're skinny? Why does getting skinnier mean you're looking better? And when I first heard this, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie to anybody here. I would never lie to you. When I first heard this, I was thinking, it almost made some sense. At first, I thought, well, damn, I guess it really probably shouldn't. I could see why someone would have some problem with that. I could see why I understand that argument of, well, getting skinnier doesn't mean you're glowing up, right? There is a reverse part of this, and that reverse part is an artist named Lizzo, who seems to be Violet Beauregarding all over the place. She's getting bigger and bigger every second. I don't know how she does that. If you don't get the Violet Beauregard reference, that's to the Willy Wonka lady who ate the blueberry, and she kept expanding and turned to a blueberry. And, man, now that I say that, I don't think that was Violet Beauregard. I think Violet Beauregard was the rich girl. Oh, my God, did I mess up that reference? Let me see. Let's check. We're going to live fact check here. Violet Beauregard. I think, oh, man, I really hope this isn't true. Nope, I got it right. I'm the best. Violet Beauregard is a bratty little girl who chews gum to keep concentration. Yep, I'm the best. She inflated, turned into a big-ass blueberry. Nailed it. I feel so good about that. Absolutely nailed it. Boom. I should have never doubted myself. When I was a little kid, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. 2 movies that really, really traumatized me as a child. And I was one of those kids that watched movies way, my dad specifically had zero idea of parental control on a movie. I saw Casino when I was 5 or 6 years old, whenever it came out. Goodfellas, saw super young. Silence of the Lambs, saw super young. Should not have been seeing those movies at all, but I watched them. But the movies that traumatized me, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the scene when they're going through the tunnel and Willy Wonka's singing and the walls of the tunnel turn into snakes and centipedes and there's bugs crawling into people's mouths, freaked me out. I didn't like that at all. Movie number 2, Wizard of Oz. The monkeys, didn't like that at all. The flying monkey things, not for me. 3, Jurassic Park. The scene, fun fact, Jurassic Park is probably my favorite movie. I've seen it more than any other movie of all time. When I was a kid, I used to watch the movie up until the goat scene where the T-Rex comes out. I would watch up until the goat scene and turn it off. So for a long time, Jurassic Park for me was about a 45-minute movie, and really not much happened. I don't even think I'm not even sure. I think I may have seen like the Brachiosauruses, and that's pretty much it. So Jurassic Park was a very different movie for me. But once the goat showed up, in credits. But yeah, Lizzo. I mean, Lizzo is the opposite of Adele. I don't think you should be Lizzo. But so I really thought about it because I wanted to talk about it on the podcast, and I was like, how do I feel about this? What is the correct answer? And I finally stumbled upon this. So I'm going to roll this out there, and I haven't even vocalized this internally, so this may not work. I may delete this. But I believe the reason that we tend to say that people are glowing up or people are doing great or congratulations, stuff like that, is because it's a sign of progression. It's a sign of dedication. It's a sign of commitment. And it's just a very obvious sign. It's a very obvious sign of commitment, dedication, passion. You putting yourself towards something and you're seeing results. Really doesn't matter what it is. It can be in anything. Like with this podcast, right? So I'm doing the podcast, working my ass off, putting this content out, all this stuff, investing the time and the effort and doing all this. And if I were to win something or even start, getting a paycheck, people would be like, congratulations. Your hard work is paying off. You're reaping a reward, no matter what it is. No one's telling me congratulations just for doing this, right? You're putting effort and commitment towards something and getting something in return for your hard work. And I think that's why when people get skinnier or when people start to look different in those ways, it's like, oh, they're obviously committed, they're obviously passionate, they're obviously putting forth an insane amount of effort, and they are seeing rewards. That is an obvious, I can see that reward. It's like they're carrying around a trophy. And you don't get that whenever you're doing what Lizzo's doing. There's no passion or commitment or engagement or whatever in eating, pallets of Funyuns. I don't know. But I think that's what people mean when they say, oh, you're glowing up or you look so good. It's just like, it's almost a congratulations. It's a congratulations on your efforts. Absolutely. You do not have to be a certain weight to be beautiful. You absolutely don't have to look a certain way to be glowing up, right? If someone doesn't take care of themselves at all, let's say they're the exact same weight, and they don't take care of themselves whatsoever. Hair is all frizzled and split ends, and they're not, they just looks like garbage. They stink, and they show up one day, and they took a shower, and they got a haircut, and they have a makeover, and they look great. You say, "Wow, you look amazing! What a glow up!" I mean, this you look unreal. It's not that all you have to do is get a haircut. It's not like getting a haircut makes you prettier. It's not that taking a shower makes you prettier. It's that they are putting forth an effort. And I think that's what's being missed in this whole thing. Per usual, Twitter completely messes everything up, but they're focusing on the weight. They're focusing on the numbers instead of focusing on the commitment and the energy and the time. And so that's where I come down on it. It took me a little bit to figure out which way I went, because I kind of thought, I was like, well, that is kind of unfair, I guess. Like, you don't have to have a dramatic physical change to be quote unquote glowing up. But I think that's the issue, is that they're taking way too much of the means of, for Adele, it was losing some weight and just changing that part. But for someone else, it could be anything. I mean, it could be, like I said, the podcast example, or baking or something like that. I mean, it could be anything that you're putting your passion towards, anything that you are going after. If you get rewarded, you should be congratulated. Now, I'm not a doctor or I'm not a scientist in this field, but there probably is an actual human response. I know with men it's like this, but we have a visceral or a very old internal thing where if you are a male and you're bigger or musclier or whatever, people are kind of drawn to that because, in our animalistic ways, those are the people who would be leaders of the group, leaders of the tribe, leaders of the group, leaders of whatever. So there are some things, there are, like, for example, I know that women with like hips, like you always see that back in the day, is you see pictures of girls like with their hips accentuated, and that's because we had an inane response to, like, quote unquote birthing hips, and back then that was something that was really pushed, and that's why people were like attracted to it, was that it created a response in them from way back when we were hunter gatherers, like, oh, this is someone who can is built for birthing. Like, when you got to remember, we are, at some point, we are animals, and we do have tendencies in us that are unexplainable to really us because we don't really live that way. No one is looking at a woman nowadays and are like, that's a birthing woman right there. Like, that's crazy, right? That's a really weird way of that. If I heard someone saying that, I'd be like, dude, go take a cold shower or something. You need to get your life together. But a couple hundred years ago, when you're worried about protection and you're worried about your lineage and you're worried about extending your family tree, that was when life expectancy wasn't very high and birthing opportunities were very low, and not every pregnancy survived, and so back then I can see why things like that would be important. Back when when males were fighting for alpha and fighting for dominance of tribes, yeah, I can see why the bigger male or the stronger male or whatever would reign supreme. Nowadays, not really the case unless you literally live inside of a UFC octagon. So the Adele thing is very interesting. I wish the pandemic wasn't happening. We could have got like a psychiatrist or a psychologist or something on here to try and walk us through that, because that is one of those things where it's a marriage of the current societal climate, and then old tendencies and old innate responses to, like, physical things or just seeing things. I mean, there's really interesting books on why certain colors do certain things to people. Like, if you see red is just kind of inane for being bad or dangerous, and it goes back to, like, snakes. It goes back to why snakes, colors on snakes then translate to colors you see, and then through evolution you just hang on to stuff like that. They say that, and now we're really going down a rabbit hole, but they say that if you have, like, a fear of snakes, that's an evolutionary fear where you have an increased fear of snakes or spiders or whatever. And if you trace back your lineage, you probably had someone pretty close to your time die from a snake bite or a spider bite or a height or whatever your irrational fear is. More than likely, that is an evolutionary trait that is passed on to you to fear that more because someone in your bloodline, felt that trauma. Whether it was, a family member of theirs dying or them having an accident or something like that, and those traits can pass on evolutionarily. So it's very interesting that there's certain things that we are drawn to, certain things we are opposed to. And a lot of the times we can't control it. It happens generations before us, and it makes us who we are. But I think the Adele thing is a little bit of that, and it's also just a little bit of people, just being petty. But there's so many layers to that. It's such a simple story. I think that's what we do on this show, is that we take these simple stories, and at least that's what I do. Like, just when I look at something, is that these little simple stories, you can unfold them into so many layers, and everything is an onion, really. And getting to the center of all that stuff, and getting to the center of why, the big question of why. And there is so many whys out there, just like with this Adele thing. I mean, why are some people like Lizzo, for example? Why would someone like Lizzo, or it doesn't have to be Lizzo, but why would some people hate Adele for looking like that? And it goes back to them maybe resenting themselves for not, again, not a weight thing, but resenting themselves for not committing to something, or to not, they hate the fact that, well, I don't have anything that I can reap the reward from. I don't have anything that I'm that passionate about. So they hate the people who are passionate about something, or they hate people who are trying to be committed to something. It's a crazy thing. You'll see people who, when they start working out, for example, let's say someone starts running, and they start running all the time, and it becomes like a huge hobby for them, a huge passion for them, and they start to maybe instead of going out drinking, they say, man, I can't go out Friday night, Saturday morning, I'm doing a race. And you'll see people hate those people. Like, you'll see people like, it's all he does is run. What are you trying to do? Get a different hobby. They'll tear them down for having a hobby or being committed to something. And it's so weird. It's so weird. I mean, that's kind of what makes life enjoyable. Is finding a passion or finding a hobby or whatever it is. Like, people like different stuff. People like different stuff, and people have different hobbies and different ideas and different visions. And if those visions or ideas or passions don't match up with yours, doesn't mean you have to hate them. Doesn't mean you have to resent them. Just let people live. I don't like Pepsi, but if someone orders Pepsi, I'm not gonna be like, what the hell's wrong with you, man? You don't like Coke? It's just like, hey, man, if you like Pepsi, you like Pepsi. Who gives a shit? If you like whatever, live your life, man. I don't watch anime, but if I know someone who loves anime, hey, man, whatever works for you. Life is so short. Life is so short and so tough. Like, it just, who cares? Who cares what gets somebody through the day? As long as it's not hurting somebody, as long as you're not a murder wasp and you're going and murdering people with your 2-inch stinger, then do you, man. If you want to go home and build tiny action figures and paint them and have Civil War replicas with tiny action figures, and do your thing, man. It don't matter to me. And I would like to see more people like that. I would like to see more people. I think everyone should do that. I think the world would be much better if everyone just had like these hobbies and everyone just did like fun, cool stuff, and you all had your own little things. I think it's so cool when people are really into stuff and when they are unabashedly for something. When someone, like nerd culture does this all the time, where people, they love something even though they know it may not be the cool thing, may not be totally in vogue, but if they are all about it and they're passionate about it and they do it and they're committed to it and it brings them joy and they're in it, to me, that just I'm so interested in people who do, like, I'm drawn to people who kind of skirt the norm to just enjoy themselves. And we're like an hour and, how long are we? An hour and 7, I think. Okay, I thought it was an hour and 37. I was like, damn, I really went on a tangent here. It's like 40 minutes on one topic, but an hour and 7 is not bad at all. I know a friend, real quick. I know someone who's big into cosplaying, and they go to like Comic Cons and they go to cosplays and they do that stuff, and they love anime and I don't do any of that stuff. I've never been to a Comic Con. I've never cosplayed. I've never really watched anime, but I love it. And every time I see her, I'm always asking her about her anime or about her cosplay, and let me see pictures. Let me see, you went to this Comic Con. How was that? I just think it's so damn boring for people to be like, oh, what's your life all about? I was like, oh, well, I heard a long time ago that it's weird that we say, oh, what do you do? And 99% of people's responses are, oh, I work here. And I was like, well, that shouldn't define what you do, right? Like, where you work, it could. I mean, it doesn't. It's not a bad thing all the time. I mean, if you work at somewhere where you're a chef or something, it's like, oh, well, I'm a chef at this place. There's certain situations where it does define you, but and no offense to people who work at HR Block, but it's like, what do you do? It's like, oh, I work at HR Block. It's like, what? That didn't really answer my question. That shouldn't be what defines you. That shouldn't be Kevin Smith, noun, male, works at HR Block. There needs to be something else there. I think people are defined by just so much more than the normal stuff. Whether it's Kevin Smith, male, went bungee jumping 4 times and is an avid mountain biker. I'd rather hear that than, oh, I do taxes. So, but that's just a little, I don't know. That's just how I look at it. But it in the end, who in the end, really, man, it's all the same. I think it all really doesn't matter. But we just got to try and figure out the funnest way and the best way and the, I guess, coolest way to get through this thing we call life, I guess. But all right, well, that's gonna be enough of me before I keep rambling for another 60 minutes here. I was starting to talk about, I was about to get into my Martha Stewart soapbox where we all should be like Martha Stewart and just have a million hobbies and a million crafts. But